Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Isaac Riley, and I'm here on behalf of the proposition, along with my colleagues FAWL and David Williamson, to propose the motion, this House believes that by the year 2025, it will be clear that Scottish independence will have been beneficial to the majority of Scots. Now, before I begin, I would like to take some time to define the motion. By independence, we mean Scotland as a separate state from the UK, the referendum of which will take place on the 18th of September 2014. By beneficial, we mean socially, economically and democratically. And by majority of Scots, it includes people of all ages, social classes and people from different geographical locations. Over the course of the proposition's case, you will hear how Scottish independence will boost our economy, and by the year 2025, Scots will be financially better off, as well as Scotland as a country being financially better off. You will also hear from my colleague Ollie how Scotland will be a fairer country and we will finally have Scottish solutions to Scottish problems. That's something, as I say, my colleague will go into more detail later. I'm going to be focusing on the economic side of independence. Currently, with being part of the UK, our economy and any money we make is sent over to Westminster, and this is distributed across the rest of the UK. Now, this is very unfair, as the money that Scots work hard for and Scots earn using their resources isn't used to benefit them. It's used in London or other parts of the UK where they see no effect in Scotland. So it's not fair that we have money that's earned by Scots and not benefiting Scots.
Point of information.
No, thank you. So I'm going to look more closely at how the money we earn and how that will benefit Scots. So I'm going to start talking a bit about oil. It is estimated that there are between 15 and 24 billion barrels of oil remaining in the North Sea. And according to government valuations, this oil has a total wholesale value of £1.5 trillion. Now that is a lot of money and could be used for great good in Scotland. Now, obviously, the oil would have to be split between Scotland and the rest of the UK following independence. And assuming they do it geographically, which is the most sensible way and the most logical way, by the medium line, which is the way the North Sea was divided up in the 1960s, we would get 90% of this oil. That would be ours. Now, we could do so much with that oil, that would mean our economy would be very secure and we would be able to do great trade with this oil. Now, the oil won't run out anytime soon. Contrary to what many people say, Oil and Gas UK's activity survey said that the reality is that the UK will continue to supply oil and gas, and I quote, well beyond 2055. Experts say at least 40 years, and a very ambitious Dr. Richard Pike, a former oil industry consultant, predicts a future of 100 years. Now, we're not suggesting oil is going to last that long, but what we're saying is it's going to last much longer than what people are saying. And by the year 2025, there will still be oil left for us to trade with and us to use and to bring money to benefit our people. Now, Scotland's economy is based on a much wider range of sectors, which include retail, construction, manufacturing, electronics, textiles, banking, higher education, the creative sector, fishing, whisky and the food and drink sector, and I've run out of fingers, tourism. You know, there are so many things that our economy is based on in Scotland and that we get lots of money from. And it's not just oil. We have such a creative people that use great skills to help our country. And the fact is, just now, this money is being spent in London and not benefiting our people. If we look at whiskey exports last year were £4.27 billion. That's because we export 40 bottles every second. That's a huge amount. And with the money that we can earn from that, it's used to benefit, and it could be used by 2025 to benefit so many things. I'll go into detail about what they are later. Tourism. Tourists spend on average £4 billion every year in Scotland, and this creates and supports 200,000 jobs. So it's not just financially that the people of Scotland will be benefited, they'll also have many, many jobs to help them. If we look at the Scottish Government after independence plan to increase exportation by 50%, which will create 100,000 new jobs. There's so many opportunities for Scotland here. So I've talked about how we'll get the money. So what will this money actually do? Well, this money can be used to fund our schools and our universities, the NHS, better public transport systems in different communities, linking different communities and stretching out to reach more people, research and development into renewable energy, developing science. There's so many things that this money can be used to benefit our people. If we just look at universities, there's a lot of debate about whether we'll have university fees following independence. But with our economy as secure as this, we no need to put university fees on because this money can be used to fund that. The NHS will help improve medicine, and we'll be able to give our kids a great start in education. These are so many ways that Scotland will benefit, and it's just the reality is it's not happening now because Westminster are taking all this money and not giving back the fair amount that we deserve as a country. So for all these reasons, it is clear that by 2025, Scottish independence will have benefited the majority of Scots, if not all of them. Thank you very much.
Imagine a Scotland where there is no debt and no poverty, where the streets are paved with gold, where there are abundant opportunities for anyone and everyone. This is a Scotland where the majority of the population has benefited from independence. A Scotland free from all worries and stresses caused by any 21st century challenge. Can you imagine this Scotland? No, neither can we. So today, I'm going to argue on Scotland's international rights, Scotland's defence, and a supposed increase in every Scottish person's wallet. So the year 2025, when I, and my colleagues here, will be 25, my team and I can assure you that Scotland will not just be the land of plenty 11 years from now. Let's assume for just a moment, in September, Scotland does indeed vote yes. What would this actually mean for all of us? The Yes campaign claims that every person in the country would be a whole £1,000 better off in an independent nation. But when you read the detail, it's not jam today, and it's not actually jam tomorrow. This House reminds you that the £1,000 doesn't apply, even using Alex Salmond's own predictions, until 2030, not to 2025.
Point of information.
Yes, please.
We are not representing the SNP. We're not representing Alex Salmond. We're just pointing out how, basic facts like the economy that we can bring in will benefit our people. So please don't make the mistake of thinking we're representing Alex Salmond.
I don't think I was making the mistake. I was just pointing out that the main sort of promoter of an independent Scotland is Alex Salmond, and this is what he is supporting. So where would this £1,000 come from? The Yes campaign assumes that because Scotland has produced billions of barrels of oil in the past, we can make lots of money from extracting the remainder. But even oil industry experts can't agree on how much oil is left, and they all point out how increasingly difficult it is to bring the remaining oil ashore. And they seem to be forgetting something. We already raise money in taxation from the North Sea. You said all of this oil will be ours, and that we could do so much with it. But all of the oil is already committed to funding Scottish schools, hospitals and pensions. So being independent wouldn't be any different. Where is that extra money coming from, the £1,000 that Alex Salmond says he will promise us? Will an independent Scotland tax the oil companies more than the UK government currently does? Oh yes, that's really going to encourage oil companies to make their investments on the hardest to extract remaining reserves. And here's something else. 2030, £1,000 by 2030? Are we really getting excited by that possibility? Since this House started their school education in 2004, petrol prices have increased by staggering margins, energy bills have soared, and travel costs have increased by 50%. That's not to mention the cost of food, clothes, and property. So would £1,000 actually be worth anything by 2030, or indeed 2025? This House suggests that the majority of Scots simply wouldn't notice that sort of financial difference whatsoever. Beyond the financial position, this House also believes that the majority of Scots would have experienced huge and unwelcome change by 2025 in an independent Scotland. This House foresees a future filled with risk. Right now, being part of the European nation benefits us all. According to the Better Together campaign, the UK's membership of the EU already sees every Scottish household benefit by £135 just from being in the Union now. Going independent could risk our place as a country in the EU. To gain a place in the European nation, everyone who is already in the Union has to accept your entry. So just one country could rob Scotland of their place. Although the Yes campaign says, basically, it'll be fine, there's not one published shred of evidence to say that we still have our place at the table. Do you think that the majority of Scots would feel real benefit outside the EU? This House doesn't. And what about life outside the EU? I know we're nice people, everyone in this room looks pretty friendly, but it's a big bad world out there, and not everyone has our best interests at heart. Alex Salmond has said that within 4 years of becoming independent, by 2020, Scotland will be free of nuclear weapons. But does this not make Scotland an easy target? As a part of the UK, Scotland benefits from our current £34 billion defence and security budget. That's more than 14 times what the SNP say they will spend on actually setting up an independent country. Who knows what could happen to pure defence of Scotland? By 2025, who knows what language students in this competition might be speaking, or should I say, OLIVIA error 3. By 2025, we're certain that the majority of Scots would feel no benefit from independence. There are huge risks to the economy, to EU membership and to the defence of the nation. That's not to mention broadcasting, currency and the monarchy, which I'm sure my colleagues will mention later. This House believes that nothing is clear for the majority of Scots by 2025 in an independent Scotland. This House opposes the motion.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is FAWL, and today I'll be continuing the case for the proposition. My colleague Isaac Riley has already discussed the financial side of independence and shown how our economy by 2025 will be very secure and how we will become a wealthy nation. My second colleague, David Williamson, will end the case for the proposition by summarising our points. I'll be focusing on how by the year 2025, Scotland will have become a fairer country and how we will, when it comes to elections, our voice will be finally heard. Before I begin my case, I would like to take some time to rebut some of the questionable points made by the opposition. So, firstly, oil. The opposition accused us of saying that we would take all the oil, when we clearly stated that we would only get 90% of it, not all, because if it's split by the medium line, which logically it should be, then we would get 90%. Secondly, they said that the fuel has been rising. Now that is Westminster's fault. They put the tax on it, not Scotland. And then they went on to say about Trident, and if we took that away, Scotland would be an easy target. But who's going to attack Scotland? Then, if someone did, I don't know why they would, but if they did attack Scotland, then England would be in threat, so they would step in to help us. And lastly, of my rebuttal, we want to say who would benefit from the Union. I'm now going to move on to my case, and first of all I'm going to demonstrate how Westminster has been having a negative effect on Scotland and how we could do far better without them. One of the ways Westminster has had a negative effect on Scotland is that it forces us into policies that we don't want, and in some cases vote against. Nuclear weapons are an example of this. There has been dumped on our country. We don't want to have nuclear submarines sitting in the River Clyde doing nothing except costing us money, but Westminster has forced it upon us. They're only there in case of a war. And in its lifetime, Trident will cost Scotland £100 billion. If we had our own government, we'd be able to have the power to make this decision and not be labelled as a country with weapons of mass destruction. The reality is that if we become independent, like this motion is proposing, we would not have to worry about Westminster's failings, as all its decisions about spending in Scotland would be made in our country. However, it's not only Westminster that's a problem, it's the people in it. In the 2010 election, Scotland overwhelmingly voted for Labour. However, because most of England voted Conservative, we got stuck with a government we did not vote for. Now, we understand that we aren't always going to get what we want, but this is the first time in 30 years that Scotland has had a country has voted for a one-way outcome was the opposite. If we were independent, our own government could be voted in the Prime Minister and the political party we wanted. By 2025, we would have full control over who gets into Parliament, and the Scottish voice will finally be heard. This is a lot fairer than what we already have. Now, having our own government, with all the powers that come with it, means that we will have Scottish solutions to Scottish problems. Now, what do I mean by that? We're saying that Scotland will be able to make decisions about its own country in its own country, by the Scottish people, and come up with Scottish solutions to solve our problems. Essentially, we will make decisions that affect us, and we can act on problems in our country, giving full attention to them. In our country, 1 in 3 children grow up in poverty. With all the money that our country will earn from the following independence, we can use this and the powers of our government to solve the 1 in 3 children that live in poverty. The fact is that Westminster isn't doing enough for our kids. But when we can make these choices and have the power to act upon them, the Scottish Government can make a difference to the lives of children. If we look at Denmark, a country of similar size and population that's also gone independent, less than 10% of their children live in poverty. We can achieve similar things, but we can only do this without Westminster. So by 2025, when we're solving our problems in Scotland, the Scottish people will be benefited as poverty levels can be reduced and there will finally be Scottish solutions to Scottish problems. So what have I shown you today? I've shown you that being independent will mean our political voice is heard and that we will be able to vote in a Prime Minister that supports the Scottish views of Scotland and will be benefited by 2025. And that we can use this money to benefit the people in Scotland and make a fairer, more democratic society that leads voters into work, that leads the voted people into working tirelessly to make a great Scotland. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, my colleague Josh has already mentioned some key points concerning the financial situation where Scotland would be in turmoil in independence. Caitlin, my other colleague, will later bring you a summation speech to sum up the campaign. But first of all, I would like to begin with some rebuttal. You say our financial situation will be okay in independence, but we will have to pay more debts, and with the only funding you have mentioned, the oil, we will lose money really quickly, especially with paying for hospitals and schools right now. Also, nuclear weapons are an increasing threat globally, and we will need a defence if a war is imminent. And with the technology that other countries have, without nuclear weapons, we wouldn't stand a chance. So to continue with Josh's idea of this fictitious, idyllic Scotland that Salmon proposes for the future of our country, do we really have enough evidence to support his ideal? Sure, we've been told Scotland will benefit from independence, but with a statement there has to be evidence, a scarce concept even throughout SNP manifestos. To summarise from their online website, they say that an independent Scotland will be able to stand alongside other nations with a voice and a vote. If I am not mistaken, our current country, the United Kingdom, already has a huge voice internationally and a vote that every member of our country can take part in.
Point of information.
Yes?
But the point that my colleague was just talking about was that the Scottish voice is hardly ever heard, and the parties that we want for and the Prime Ministers that we want to represent us are hardly ever voted into Westminster, so don't represent us how we want to be represented.
Well, what you're saying there is that we don't need independence, we need a bigger voice in the country, and a Scottish government could get that by asking for it. They don't need independence to achieve that. So, to continue, why do we need independence to give us the same privileges that we have right now? There is no evidence to be found in the SNP manifesto, only statements that could easily be mistaken for dreams. Also, our border with England will be a huge issue as well. What is, at the moment, a quick journey in a car past our border will turn into a longer process where passports are needed to cross into England or even back into Scotland. Independence may also reintroduce issues with towns like Berwick that are located near the current border over which country they will actually be a member of. This will affect many people that live in these towns and has the potential...
Point of information.
Yes?
You say we'll need border control and so forth, but there's many countries in the EU that have open borders, and a situation like that could easily be made for England and Scotland.
But at the moment, the current situation being talked about is that we're probably not going to have an open border at the moment. So another crucial consequence will be that the trade between countries, why should people trade with Scotland when there are much quicker alternatives in the other country without borders? So in this so-called Scottish paradise in 2025, we are fairly certain that we will not be using the pound and the monarchy will also be gone. If we consider just how adapted our country is to the pound, it will be a massive change once it is gone and everybody could be altering to something like the euro or perhaps even an entirely new currency. The knock-on effects of this could prove detrimental to both our bank accounts... No, thank you. Our bank accounts and Scotland's economy as a whole. Think about how long it will take to exchange all the money that one person possesses into the new currency and how unnecessary this change is. Another consequence is the fact that you would have to exchange money into pounds just to go to England. Again, this will also discourage trade between Scotland and the rest of the UK. We would not need this if independence was non-existent. The monarchy act as figureheads for our entire country at the moment, and although they are controversial in some areas, they are part of our country's identity and traditions. Their celebrations help to unite our country to celebrate together, a unity that will not be maintained after a declaration of independence. Another example of unity and teamwork is present within well-known institutions such as the Bank of England or the BBC. What you might not know is that these companies were both originally founded by Scots. However, there are thousands of workers at these organisations that are from other areas of the UK, or indeed from other countries globally. The point is that although Scots created these institutions, they were improved greatly by the work that a mixture of the UK has done and the unity of these workers. Without this, new companies in Scotland will have a smaller range of ideas to improve them by 2025, leading to less diverse and lower quality businesses. The Treasury has said that Scottish households were £2,000 better off, as Scotland can do borderless trading within the UK. If independence is indicated, our taxes will increase to account for this, and the likelihood is that taxes will continue increasing into 2025, and this could be by a substantial amount. Surely there would be nobody supporting tax increases. So, let's imagine this perfect Scotland that Salmon promises in 2025 again, only this time the debt-free land that Josh mentioned has increasing taxes and the economy is collapsing. The gold streets that were expected are now full of potholes. This is a Scotland where the majority of the population have been negatively affected by independence, a Scotland worrying about the stability of their country and stressing over their financial situation. This is the result of independence by 2025, only this time, this is reality. We beg you to oppose this motion.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Sir Chair, audience. My name is David Williamson. I'm the third speaker for the proposition tonight. I am going to summarise most of the points made by my colleagues Isaac Riley and Olivia FAWL earlier. So, to begin, Scottish solutions to Scottish problems was delved into a bit of detail by my colleague Olivia, but I will go into more depth on how this is an essential part if we become independent. We want to be able to make our own choices for our own problems. By 2025, this is possible, as we will have, by that time, adapted to independence, and Scotland will be an independent country with more experience and will have made key decisions which will allow us to be confident to separate for our own answers with an individual lifestyle. Secondly, Olivia mentioned Trident. This is the keeping of nuclear missiles strategically in Scotland. If we were to become independent, then we would scrap Trident, which would save us money, as it is costing us money already just keeping them there and they're gathering dust. So if we would become independent, we would scrap it, and we would help grow our economy, killing two birds with one stone.
Point of information.
Yes, please.
Do you not think that just the safety barrier or safety net with nuclear weapons, so, oh, they've got nukes, let's not nuke them or there's nuke us back. Do you not think that the safety net with our £34 billion security and defence budget is just fine having it there?
Well, you said about the nuclear missiles being kept here and nuke each other and nuke them back. Now, we scrap these missiles, and that means that we've got rid of them, and then we have more money to afford our own defence system, so we're not having to use our defences, which are run by other countries. Another point mentioned is education. So if we were to take money from the scrapping of non-Scottish based companies and businesses that run in Scotland, we would be able to raise money to put into our educational system from primary, secondary and up to university level. Meaning more students will want to go to Scottish universities rather than England universities or even UK universities. We put it back into our own government and economy. Scotland is rich in oil. This will go back into the economy from the money that we get. The 90% of the oil that my colleagues have explained earlier that we will get if we become independent. The money of this will go toward the government, and they will spend it well in things like education, defence systems, and things to make sure that we are not under risk from other different, from a point of view from the opposition, actually people attacking us. And if we decide to get oil, we will sell it, but who do we sell it to? So we can trade with other countries, which will improve our international relationship with other countries. The money currently that we get from oil and other things is going into Westminster. It's not coming back, and this is hurting our economy. Not the UK, not England, it is hurting our economy, most of all, because Westminster are the governing body in the United Kingdom. So by 2025, all money that we make will go into our economy, not England's, and not the United Kingdom's. Tourism. Tourism is already a major part of Scotland's economy, with over £4 billion being spent each year on tourism. Independence would mean, what would really change tourism if so? It would bring more tourists into Scotland, rather than bringing them into England and other countries. Yes, so these are our resources. We're giving them to the United Kingdom, and they're using them. But we're using them. They're using them in a way that is not benefiting us whatsoever. They're using it in a way that benefits England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, because we're giving them the resources. They're taking advantage. Because it's our blood, sweat, and tears that go into making these things, and we have to deal with lots to send them away. So for them just not give us anything back is just really, it's not fair. So to conclude. Independence will be beneficial for Scotland by 2025 for the reasons my colleagues and I have, my colleagues have given and I have explained. So for this, I urge you to support the motion. Thank you for listening.
Chairperson, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow speakers of the House. Scotland has never been perfect. Scotland will never be perfect. No matter what the SNP say, perfection can never be achieved, especially if Scotland becomes independent. But wait, it's the year 2025, and we are independent. We aren't perfect because of our decision we made in 2014. Alex Salmond has cleared off and left us with a mess that surely someone somewhere is going to have to sort out. Who can we turn to, though? Oh wait, no one. Absolutely no one. We've left everyone behind the cast iron gates we shut on September the 18th, 2014. We are on our own. I guess that's what independence is. But is that what we really want? No, it's not. But clearly, for the people that I was sitting opposite, it is what they want. I will now go on to summarise the points of clash from the debate. The proposition said that the taxes weren't spread evenly across the countries. Well, actually, statistics show that we actually get more back to Scotland than what we put into London. So clearly this is benefiting us. And if we become independent, then we will have less money. And where will that be made up? The people who are tax paying. So the people will not benefit from this, as they're the ones that are going to have to pay. The proposition also believes that the oil will make us a load of money. But right now, we are increasingly turning to more economically friendly resources, such as...
Point of information.
Yes, please.
Throughout the proposition's case, you've been having a very negative look on independence, which is understandable. But I'd like to ask, what benefit does staying in the Union have to anyone? You've not covered that. You've not told us who benefits from staying in the Union. You've just told us how our idea and how our positive idea is going to not work.
I will get onto that later. So right now, we are increasingly turning to more economically friendly resources, such as wind power, wave power, and solar power. So no one may even end up wanting our oil. What are we going to do then? And also, as Josh mentioned, it's becoming increasingly difficult to bring ashore the remainder of it, what we have. Which means that even if they do want it, no thank you, then we can't even give it to them. The proposition also said, who will attack Scotland when we give up our nuclear weapons? Well, if we do become independent, then Alex Salmond has promised that we will get rid of our nuclear weapons to England. But England have said they have no space for them and they don't want them. So, right now we're in an argument with England. Well, NATO has said they won't take us on as a valid country if we're in an argument with another country. So, we're left with no protection as we have got rid of our nuclear weapons, and we're not part of NATO, which is also another means of protection. But then you said that surely we could turn to England in this matter. Well, no, we couldn't, because independence is all about doing it on our own. No one else is there. No, thank you. No one else is there to help us when we're on our own. The whole point of having our nuclear weapons is as a defence, so that we can be protected in case danger comes. What are we going to do when it does come? We have no protection and no NATO. Also, they brought up...
Point of information.
Yes, please.
You said about you said about England and they wouldn't help us. Well, surely they would help us if we were in a matter of crisis, because it's a short border between Scotland and England. So if Scotland are getting attacked by another country, then surely this is very close to England. So England are going to have to take up some sort of authority in the matter.
Well, England have signed no contract to say that they will help us, and we won't. This is an irreversible decision. We are on our own. Independence is all about being on our own. The UK will not be able to help us in times of need. They can if they want, but they have no obligation to. So why would they? So, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow speakers, clearly I have proven that by 2025, the people of Scotland will have felt no benefit from independence whatsoever. For all the reasons Josh, Ross and I have stated, we believe that nothing has been set in stone and that we would be better off remaining united. The people of Scotland should not maroon themselves as an island within an island. United we stand, divided we fall. Proud to be Scots, but delighted to be united. This is why we oppose your motion.